Hey guys, it's Kaz here, and today I'm going to be doing a video going a little bit more in depth with my 2022 TBR and my Buzzwordathon for 2022. What books I read for them, what star ratings I gave, and just some overall thoughts, feelings, opinions, stuff. So I'm going to do Buzzwordathon first. It's technically not even called Buzzwordathon anymore because it's not a readathon. Buzzword challenge, I guess, is what it's been named, but we all know it as Buzzwordathon. So this was a challenge created by Books and Lala, and each month there is a set prompt and you have to read a book based on them. Some of them are specific words, some of them are categories, so let's just go through those. So in January the prompt was the 5 W's, and for that one I read What They Always Tell Us by Martin Wilson. This was a reread. I read it quite a few years ago and I still very much enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. Good times. I'm not going to go into synopsises and stuff because I'm just going to talk about a lot of books in this. So yeah, pre-warning. The February prompt was pronouns, and I read I Have No Secrets by, I want to say Penny Nelson? I think it's a Penny. It might not be Nelson, but it might be another name that begins with P. But again, I did very much enjoy this. I also gave it 4 stars. For March, it was locations, and I read Tunnel of Bones by Victoria Schwab. The location is the tunnel. I gave it 4 stars. April was Big and Little, and this was the first one that I had a little bit of trouble because I only had a couple of things that could slightly fit, but I eventually read Spider-Man One Small Break. Big, Little, Small fits in there. I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. May's prompt was directions, and for that one I read Madhouse at the End of the Earth by Julian Sancton. I gave it 5 stars. Absolutely loved this book. I did a whole video on this about highlighting in books because I highlighted throughout, you can't tell, but yeah. I'll link that up above. And what was it? Directions. Yeah, the directions is the madhouse is at the end of the earth. The direction is the end of the earth. For June, the prompt was all, just the word all. And for that one, I read All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. And again, I give this 4 stars. It was a pretty decent challenge, seems so far. For July, the prompt was bookish, and I read The Book of Ethan by someone. And it's written on there, and this one I gave 3 stars, and I've unhauled it since. For August it was items, and I read Concrete Rose by Angie Thomas. The item is a rose made of concrete, of course, and again I gave it 4 stars. There were a lot of 4 stars in here. I picked well. For September it was Light and Dark, and I read, what was this called? The Dark Earth Volume 1. This was a random manga I found on the Kindle. I gave it 3.5. It was fine. This was definitely the hardest out of everything though. I'm pretty sure this was the hardest book. Light and Dark, who knew? For October the prompt was animals, and for that one I read Lord of the Fly Fest. Fly is an animal by Goldie Moldavsky. I gave this one 3 stars. It was alright. It is on my pile for unhaul though. So yeah. November was ING, and for that one I read The Burning Kingdoms by Sally Green, and I gave this 3.5. I'm on the fence about unhauling this trilogy. I absolutely love the Half Bad trilogy, and I reread the first 2 books in this series and then read this one, and I liked the first 2 books less than the first time I read them, so I don't know if I'm ever going to reread it, so I might end up unhauling this trilogy. But I very much stand behind Half Bad because it's fucking delicious. And then finally in December it was Numbers, and I read Master of One by Jada Jones and Danny Bennett, and I gave this one 4 stars. So pretty much overall most of the books I read for this challenge were 4 stars, which is good. It got books off my TBR that I owned. It was a fun challenge. I feel like this year the challenge is harder. So in my reading journal, which I will make a video about, it will be out very soon, I've put some like potential picks for some of the challenges, but there are quite a few on there that I don't have anything for, so I might have to like scour the Kindle for something random. But yeah, this year is definitely harder for me. But 2022, most of the books I owned. I did have that random one on the Kindle, but overall it was a good time. So we're going to move on to the 2022 TBR, but first obviously I will send you over to a message from one of the spons, and then I'll be back with all the 2022 books and we'll see about the ratings there and what happened. Quick, hi, what are you wooing at? Yeah, what? start. So, 2022 TBR, 22 books for 2022. That's how many books I'm going to talk about. So first I have a little chart here which shows how many books I read each month. So it started off pretty well. I'm just going to grab this so I can have a look at what's going on. So it started off pretty well. So in January, February, March I read 2 to 3 books each month. Good time. It went a little bit lower in April. I only read 1 off of my 2022 TBR in April. But then made up for it in May by reading 3. Then we get to June, July and August, the middle of this year. I think it was mostly to do with readathons and stuff. I was very much readathon heavy, and there were like month-long ones with loads of prompts and stuff that I couldn't fit stuff together with my 2022 TBR and the prompts. So in June, July, August I read 1, and then August I read 0 off this list. So yeah, that definitely hampered my reading of the TBR, the middle of the year, but I did end up reading them all, so it's always a bonus. September I read 2, October I read 1, and then November I read 4 of them, and then December I read 2, and that was all of them, the 2022 TBR, all 22 books. Big up November, pretty much. Like, I think in November I read 6 books and 4 of them were 2022 TBR ones, so I was very much like, I am gonna finish this list, I decided. So that was the overall when I read them. I definitely want to be a little bit more even this year. I did start out last year well, but the TBRs, the readathon TBRs definitely screwed me up in the middle of the year, so I won't let that happen again this year, because it was a bit of a scramble at the end, I'm not gonna lie. But yes, now I'm gonna get onto the star ratings, and I do have a little graph here, and then I'm also gonna go through the books individually. But just to start out with the graph we have here, so I had 2 books that were 2.5 stars, none that were 1 or 1.5 or 2. So 2.5 is not great, but only 2 of the books on there, not too bad. Although both of them I thought was going to be higher, but it's fine. I didn't have any books that were 3 stars, but we jump up to 3.5, and I had 5 books that were 3.5, 8 books that were 4 stars, which is makes sense because 4 is like my average. I always rate more books 4 stars than anything else. 4.5, I had 5 books, and then I had 2 5-star books on this list. So this list for me is never specifically like, some people do videos where it's like 5-star predictions or books that I think are going to be really high rated. This list isn't that for me. It's a mixture of different things. It was books that I was really excited about, but it was also books that I was a bit like unsure of, books that I've had on my TBR for ages that I'm just not leaning towards and I need to lean towards. You know, some of the things that I didn't necessarily have like expectations for them to be amazing, so I think overall the ratings are pretty decent. Not too many that were on the low end, pretty much just the 2.5 ones, and then everything else is 3.5 and higher, which is good. So I'm going to go through all the books individually now. Quickly though, don't worry. So starting with the 2.5, I have From Hell by Alan Moore and Eddie Campbell. This one was definitely one that I would hope to have been better. It is on my unhaul pile, I've just not got around to it yet. The other book on the 2.5 was Lost in the Neverwoods by Aidan Thomas, which I very much thought or hoped would be higher. I unhauled that like the same month I read it, or the next month after I'd talked about it in my wrap up. So yeah, that's gone. But it's very unfortunate, that one, because I was hoping, even though it did have very middling reviews, I was hoping that it would be better. So jumping straight up to the 3.5s, the 5 books that were 3.5s on my list were The Wild Truth by Karen McCandless. This was non-fiction. Erebus, The Story of a Ship by Michael Palin, also non-fiction. The Weight of Our Stars by Kay Ancrum, which was sci-fi. This one was also one that I hoped would have been higher because the other book I've read by Kay Ancrum was 5 stars, and then I gave this one 3.5, so yeah, I was hoping for more. Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Waters of the World by Benjamin Alias-Sains. Contemporary. Again, this is one that I hoped would have been higher because I adored Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, and this one was quite a letdown for me. And then The Burning Kingdoms by Sally Green, which was fantasy, and I talked about this book earlier. So yeah, those are all the 3.5 on this list. Next up are the 8 books that I rated 4 stars. So first of all, Hannibal by Thomas Harris. This is a thriller. I Have No Secrets by, again, I want to say Penny Someone. This was also a thriller. YA thriller though, the other one was an adult thriller. Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton, which was sci-fi. The Fate of 10 by Pittacus Law, which was also sci-fi. This series, as I read them, I just unhaul them because I don't need to own like the 7-book series, but I have been enjoying it. I only have 1 book left on that, so I definitely need to read it this year. Dance on My Grave by Aidan Chambers, which was contemporary. Boys Don't Cry by Mallory Blackman, also contemporary. The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, which is like classic, not classic, yeah, classic? Is that what it's called? Classical? No, what's the word? It is classics. I don't read classics that much, I feel like that's the wrong word, but I put it in contemporary. And Wild Sky by Zaya Feli, which is fantasy. The 5 books that I rated 4.5 in my 2020 TBR were as follows. Mindhunter by John Douglas and Mark Olshaker, which was non-fiction. Bugger, that goes on my books. Shackleton's Boat Journey by F.A. Wordsley, which is also non-fiction. Vengeful by V. Schwab, which was sci-fi. 4321 by Courtney Stevens, which was contemporary. And Seal of the Worm by Adrian Tchaikovsky, which was fantasy. And then last but certainly not least, the 2 5-star reads, which were both brilliant. First of all, we have The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater, which was fantasy. And also Bitter Blue by Kristen Cashore, which was also fantasy. So yes, these 2 were my favourite books out of my 2022 TBR. Highly recommend both of them. So yeah, that's all of the buzzwordy and TBR-y stats. Let me know down below if you've read any of these books. I can't say let me know down below if you want to read any of them because I didn't tell you any synopsises, but yeah, let me know anything down there. Did you have a TBR that you wanted to read, and how many did you read? And did you take part in the Buzzword challenge? Buzzwordathon. Let me know down below. If you're interested in more stats, the last video I posted was very stats based, so check that out. Subscribe if you want, and yeah, I'll see you in a few days. Bye.